Basically migrating Lotus Notes applications to the Microsoft platform. So we're just going to be going over what our methodology is, how we go about approaching the applications, the migration, and a little bit about what our process is. So for today's agenda, we want to cover why companies are looking to migrate their applications and the options for moving the applications, as well as some of the challenges companies are faced with in migrating their Lotus Notes applications. Along with that, we will provide a demo of a real-world notes application that was migrated to the Microsoft platform with our Composer solution. Before I start, though, I'd like to mention that there is a toolbar at the bottom of the page for posting questions. Please use the Q&A button, which will help us manage everybody's questions from one place. Please feel free to post as many questions at any time during the presentation. We set aside some time at the end for some Q&A. We want to make this as open and interactive as possible. We want to make sure you understand what our process is, how we go about it at the end of this presentation. I would also like to introduce Suresh Kumar, who will be presenting the demo of the converted notes application. He's a great resource. He's been at a lot of customer sites. He's battle-tested with our customers and our solution, so he's a great resource. First of all, let me step back and just give you a little background on Unified. We are a publicly traded enterprise software company that has a 25-year history, which includes being the first company to deliver a relational database in the Unix environment. Since then, we've delivered software development products that run across different databases and platforms geared toward rapid development of business applications. Today, we build a growing solution portfolio focused on helping customers modernize their legacy applications, which helps maximize their existing investments and supports rapid adoption of the new target platform. Okay, now let's move on to why companies are looking at migrating their Lotus Notes applications. So what are the drivers behind transitioning Lotus Notes applications? The bullets above fall into two categories. First, a corporate mandate of no new development in Lotus Notes. And second, the applications are better suited to a relational database as they have become critical to the business and need to be integrated into the technology infrastructure the enterprise is standardizing on. This is particularly imperative for those complex, transactional, heavy business logic notes applications that need to scale or are tied to compliance requirements such as Sarbanes-Oxley. In addition, we've seen a lot of activity being driven by recent mergers and acquisitions within the market and their need to standardize. Hopefully you should have options. Okay. Companies often have hundreds or even thousands of notes applications that range from discussion databases to the complex Lotus script-based business applications. There are several solutions in the market today that help organizations take inventory of their notes environments. This helps the organization identify and remove duplicate applications and applications no longer in use. They also have categorized the applications from simple to complex. But even with the help of these solutions, the organizations must still determine what the options are for each application to be moved to the .NET platform. The four options that we found that customers are considering are retire, replace with packaged applications, rewrite, and migration. Now, rewrite and replace with packaged applications are pretty self-explanatory. It is worth spending a moment, though, on rewrite and migration. Customers are hesitant to embark on a rewrite of every Notes app that needs to be moved to the .NET platform. They find this overwhelming from both a time and a cost perspective. We have found they are looking for the ideal blend of rewrite versus migrate for the remaining Lotus Notes applications. In some cases, a rewrite is appropriate. A good example are applications that no longer meet the business requirements of the organization. They will most likely require a major re-architecture and change in business functionality in the initial move to the .NET platform. However, where the application already meets the business requirements, a primary objective of the customer is to preserve the business functionality and then minimize disruption to the end users in the initial move to the .NET platform. Let's take a look at the key objectives of a migration where the applications meet many of the existing business requirements. These are the key objectives suited to a migration. A migration is a lower cost, lower risk, and faster approach to preserving the business functionality and minimize the disruption to the business. In the case of the Composer solution, the time to migrate the apps is significantly reduced. Unify works with the customer to determine the greatest number of applications that can be migrated in order to minimize the cost and time to move your applications to the .NET platform. With the Composer solution, Unify engages in a fixed fee, fixed scope software and service engagement, which makes us unique. The engagement starts with the discovery process where Unify works with the customer to understand the key objectives for their application migration to .NET. The business justification and metrics for the objectives are identified as part of the process. In order to be held accountable by our clients, it's imperative that the customer's primary objectives for their Notes application migration project are identified. And the discovery process is key to our solution to the market. With a clear set of prioritized objectives, the challenge of what to migrate, how to migrate, and where to migrate becomes much clearer, as we will illustrate in the next slide. The illustration provides an overview of a Notes application migration, and there are some key points here to remember. First, on the left-hand side are the key components of a Notes application to be migrated to the .NET platform. All of these are key to a like-for-like migration to minimize the disruption to the end users. Customers must understand how all four of these areas are addressed by any migration solution they consider. The business and workflow logic is a prime example. If it is not preserved, or if the portion is actually addressed by a rewrite, it can have a major impact on the cost and time to deliver the application in .NET. This is particularly true for the more complex Notes applications. The demonstration portion of this webinar will show how Composer addresses all four of these areas without a rewrite. It is also how Unify is able to deliver the fixed fee, fixed scope engagement. Chances are, if a migration solution is not fixed fee, fixed scope, some of those components are involving more of a rewrite on the back end of the migration. The right-hand side of the illustration shows the various layers in the .NET stack that will be populated by the migrated applications. Customers have a very important decision to make on whether the application will be a SharePoint or ASP.NET application migration. Many customers think they'll put everything into SharePoint. However, they discover that there is a functionality in some of their Notes applications that cannot be reproduced into SharePoint. If the migration objectives include preserving this application functionality and giving the business users a like-for-like application, the objectives cannot be achieved in SharePoint. ASP.NET is the more appropriate landing spot for that application. This is common for transaction-based applications and applications with substantial Lotus script or heavy workflow. Unify has a process we refer to as ART that is unique to the Notes market for analyzing the key attributes and functionality of each Notes application at the component level. Now, ART stands for Analyze, Refine, and Target. The analysis identifies the complexity of each Notes application and the usage of each attribute. The refinement is where Unify assists the customer in confirming which of those attributes are needed to meet the business requirements in the .NET platform. Only the code that is needed to preserve the business functionality is migrated, resulting in a cleaner migrated application. And then the target step is where Unify provides which applications can be directly migrated into InfoPath or SharePoint or ASP.NET in order to meet the customer's migration objectives. After the migration, the newly recomposed application can be optimized with enhanced workflows, user interface, integration, testing, and installation. Here are some examples of application attributes that are identified in the analysis, refine, and target process with Composer. This helps determine which Microsoft platform should be considered when migrating specific Notes applications. ASP.NET represents the most flexible platform since there is the opportunity to break migrated Notes applications into web parts. This flexibility offers the end users the ability to determine how best to leverage their Microsoft platform investment, both ASP.NET and SharePoint, to serve their ever-evolving business requirements. So now we're going to go on to the demo portion of our presentation. Now, to keep a couple things in mind during the demo, we are showing a real-world notes application from a customer migration project that we've done. Be sure to note the richness and complexity of the application. We will start in the Notes app and then show the migrated application as well as the migrated code underneath. We will address the challenges of user interface, business logic, security, and the database. This is a production-to-production migration, so be sure to note the like-for-like user interface and the application functionality. And then we will also show the migrated app as an ASP.NET app due to the business functionality and the objectives of the customer that need to be preserved. However, it is worth noting that Composer can migrate apps both, as I mentioned before, to ASP.NET and SharePoint wherever appropriate. And then we'll also show our analyzer tool. So give me a minute here to shift this over to Suresh, and then I'll let him go ahead with the rest.
Thanks, Cleet. So just give me a minute here, and I'm going to switch to the demo environment so that we could actually take a look at the applications that we are going to be showcasing as part of the webinar today. So, as part of the demonstration, what I'll be walking you through is, the application in a Notes client environment for the first view, and then showcasing some of the complexity and the rich UI that is actually available in these applications that we have migrated. And then, as part of the migration solution, we will be showing you a ASP.NET application. And once that's done, we will actually switch over to the back-end code to actually show you the application solution within Visual Studio, and then switch on to the analyzer tool to talk about the art process and how we actually go about analyzing, refining, and targeting applications as part of the discovery process. So like you can see, this is actually a work order application that we had migrated, and you can actually see, there's a lot of richness in terms of UI within these applications. So as part of typical Notes applications, you have a whole bunch of outline items. You have the capability to actually view document data in categorized views that actually span multiple levels of categories, actual records that are being displayed, and also the capability to actually drill down into any specific document to actually view the document data. So like you can see, this particular form has most of the complex UI objects that you typically see in a Notes application. Everything from your calendar controls, lookup buttons that actually go and look up do DB lookup against external databases. It also has things like your that is actually for this particular application. So we are actually seeing a HTML snippet. I spend a lot of time going based application. This is a workflow application that actually allows the users to schedule work orders and route it through different levels of approvals as part of the business process. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch back into a migrated application. So what you should be seeing on the screen now is actually the migrated ASP.NET solution. So like Cleet was mentioning, we are actually showcasing the ASP.NET solution here because this particular application required us to actually preserve all the functionality in terms of all the business logic and the complex workflow and lookups that were actually part of the database that we had migrated. So applications can also be targeted to the SharePoint, InfoPath, Web Forms environment, and we will talk about that during our art process that when we review the analyzer product from within us. Now let's look at the ASP.NET application. So like you can see, we preserve most of the UI that is actually that you are used to within the Notes environment. So that includes all your twisties, ability to actually drill down into recipes on these particular views, double click and actually get, but you have the capability to actually, since in the Notes world it always gets into a read-only mode and you actually double-click on records to actually get into an edit mode, you have the capability within our solution to actually configure those, user interfaces to actually either directly go into an edit mode or a read-only mode when the user clicks on the document data. Now, if we go back and take a look at some of the other all by equipment number, that is actually you can see here the section work order entry form, and you will see we do migrate all the 4 components that Cleet was talking about as part of the migration. This would include the database, the user interface, the security, and the business logic. So the underlying database that is actually is used for this particular application is a SQL Server 2005 database, and you have the capability to choose, or you can actually let us know which particular relational database you would want to use, and we could actually target the database to either be Oracle or DB2 or anything of your choice. The user interface, these are all .NET objects that you're seeing that have been migrated. So we migrate all the Lotus UI elements into .NET objects, and we have kind of expanded them to actually include additional functionality to actually allow you to have a like-for-like user interface within the ASP.NET world. Now let's go ahead and go into look at some in Lotus Notes application. So here in this case it's actually in edit mode. You have things like pulling dialog box. Here it's actually on a previous selection. That's some business logic in here that actually triggers error notifications if certain information is not found. Based on entry of transactions within that particular application, there was business logic in scripting language or formula language that actually throws out errors to the users for them to actually be notified of any kind of wrong data entry within these forms. We'll also go ahead and take a look at some of the other views. You can see that there's a lot of categorized views within this particular that are migrated. With totaling that is actually we also bring lines that you see on the left, and also the the action bars for the users to navigate to different parts of the application that you're seeing here. One other key thing to be aware of is typically Notes applications have a lot of Office integration that includes Word or Excel integration. As part of the migration, we bring across all the Word and Excel integration, be it either a generation of reports that might be from specific views that are extracting out data into Excel spreadsheets, or even to the extent that if certain forms are actually being populated based on Excel data being read from an external source, we do support all the Office integration as part of this solution that we offer. And like I was mentioning, since this is actually a relational database that's actually that are part of the documents are also migrated. So like you can be seeing an attachment that is part of the rich text field on that form. As far as rich text fields go, we actually capture them as a blob entry into the relational model. So we actually separate out all the attachments that are actually tied to rich text field. But keep in mind that since these documents can actually be inline as part of the rich text fields, we actually assemble those as inline objects when it is actually displayed back to the end user. So we preserve all that functionality for inline rich text attachments that are actually part of the documents itself. Now, most of this functionality is available to be deployed as web parts within SharePoint. So any of your forms that you see here, or any of the views that you're actually seeing, all these things can actually be migrated to SharePoint as web parts from within this particular ASP.NET application. Capability to actually migrate the applications with limited functionality, and as I go through the analyzer, you'll actually see how we actually go about analyzing, refining, and targeting some of these applications that we actually review as part of the discovery process to the Microsoft platform. Now let me go ahead and switch to the development environment in Visual Studio and actually show you some of the code that's actually behind this particular application that you're actually seeing. As part of the services engagement is a Visual Studio project that actually includes all the applications that have been migrated into Visual Studio solutions. So what you're seeing here is, like I was talking about, all the business logic that is actually migrated and all the UI components that are also migrated as part of the solution. So on the left side, what you're seeing is all the specific business logic that's actually tied to agents, forms. There's also all these various pick lists that are actually part of the documents that are actually migrated, all your site code. So the programming language that is actually used as part of this offering is actually C#. And once this application is provided to you, you could actually use either VB.NET or any of the C# programming concepts and methodologies to actually enhance these applications to include or extend for any additional requirements that you might have to support your business requirements. So let's take a look at one of the agents that's been migrated. So here is an agent that's actually been migrated. So agents do get migrated as Windows services. You would actually be deploying these as Windows services on your server environment. And these have the capability to be deployed or scheduled like your existing notes applications. So you could actually schedule them either daily or any specific period that you might choose to for the scheduling purposes. So we have chosen the Windows Services environment for the deployment of it so that it's very easy for administrators to monitor and manage these agents that are actually going to be run in the background for processing of any of the business logic that might include anything from your mail-in databases that mail in documents for agents to process, or it could be anything. It could be a non-scheduled agent that is actually part of the application that is actually invoked from a menu click on a specific form. And like you can see, we actually bring across all of the business logic that is actually part of these agents or forms that is in there. Just giving you as part of this particular agent actually is looking up a of the same of the metadata for that particular form that any of these metadata columns that the manager class that actually is responsible with the fields get migrated to all your heights, your it's actually doing an at for the formula language that you currently have been implemented within C#. You for a notes developer transitioning into ASP.NET to actually changes. So that was the intention for us to actually retain all the the naming conventions that's currently in the notes world, so that it's very easy for a notes developer to transition into an ASP.NET developer maintaining these apps going forward once the migration is done. The security piece. you are actually part of specific app. You might choose that you actually want to have coexistence with the Notes environment. For email, we do also support coexistence with the Notes environment, as long as the Notes Domino environment actually provides you with the LDAP capability to actually allow us to query into the directory. Services. I'm going to go ahead and it was talking about, because discovery of the applications is very critical in actually estimating, the time and effort involved in actually migrating these applications. Since we actually do a fixed fee, fixed cost bid to actually do the migrations, it's very important for us to actually determine the complexity of the applications that we are actually involved in actually trying to migrate. So as part of the ART process, what we typically do is we actually use our analyzer applications that you might actually have in mind to actually migrate to the Microsoft platform. What I mean by that is, once the application is actually run through the analyzer, like you can see on the screen here, there is a whole bunch of statistics that we actually gather in terms of the design elements that is actually part of the database, and like you can see everything, agents, design elements that are actually inherited from other templates that you might have, the number of lines of formula that are there, total number of Lotus script lines that are part of the document, how many of these things are actually supported in terms of the migration initially, because we need to actually figure out how much of effort is going to be involved in actually taking care of all the remainder of the stuff that's not been migrated as part of the effort involved, because since it's a software plus services engagement, what we provide to you is a like-for-like or a toned down application based on the platform that you might choose, depending on the requirements that you might have within your business. It also provides you things like how many external databases are actually tied to that we can database that you're trying to migrate, because as part of the full solution, also have the capability to actually quickly view trying to do tells you if there's any kind of office automation, if there's kind of fields perform actually there is a lot of unused functionality within these applications that if you look at a migration effort, it doesn't really make sense to actually migrate any of the unused pieces of portions of these applications. So what we do as part of the discovery process is we actually sit down with either the business users or the developers to actually determine of the lists of the various design elements that you're actually seeing as part of this analyzer, how much of it is actually really used, because so that, it actually contributes to a reduction in the cost for the actual migration effort itself, so that it's very critical as part of the discovery process for us to actually determine if the whole application is used as is, or if there is any kind of refinement that could be done in terms of the design elements that can be removed and provided to us, so that we could actually factor those in terms for the estimation of the project. So we have a lot of options in here where it will allow us to actually filter down things like what are the recently updated forms. So if you're actually looking at documents, and if you want to actually get a feel of the most recently updated forms that are within this application, you have the capability to actually do that. You have the capability to actually figure out which are the forms that have documents, which are the forms that don't have documents, and then if you're actually going by a criteria that pick up only the forms and views that actually have aliases, you have the capability to do that. And also we also can filter out any of the scheduled disabled agents that you might have within these applications, so that we, as this process is progressing, we actually sit down with the developer and actually identify all these things to filter down and refine the application that we are actually looking at for the migration. Now, in terms of the targeting of the platforms, so what we mean by that is you have two targets that you can actually go to. One is either the ASP.NET, which actually provides you, there was a slide that Cleet had shown, which actually described some of the example pieces of code that actually get migrated within the two targets, either be it SharePoint with InfoPath forms or a ASP.NET application. For the maximum functionality and actually preserving the existing nodes functionality, like all the rich UI and all the business logic that's within these applications, you will be actually going to an ASP.NET environment, because that's the platform that will actually give you the most functionality in terms of what you need for a like-for-like behavior in the ASP.NET, in the Microsoft platform. Now, if you choose to actually go and go to the SharePoint with the InfoPath Web Forms environment, what we actually do as part of this analyzer is allow you to see the various kind of risks that might be involved in actually moving the applications to a SharePoint with InfoPath Web Forms. So like you can see on the screen, as soon as you click on the open here, and this migrates to SharePoint InfoPath in red. So if I actually drill down into some of these typical example where the click event cannot be translated into InfoPath. So there's a whole bunch of formula language and logic based on a click on a button on this particular form. So these things cannot be translated into InfoPath. So there's a whole bunch of these kind of scenarios that are restrictive of the movement to SharePoint with InfoPath forms. Here are some of the other. This analyzer also actually do a translation of this particular Lotus script have the capability to actually see this in the application in the notes world, the migrated application that you saw in the ASP.NET world, and also, talking a little bit about the whole art process where we actually determine the feasibility of moving these apps, and we expose that back to the business users so that they could make a determination in terms of the target platform these applications will go to, and provide you with an estimate that is true in terms of the effort and cost involved in actually doing the migrations. And keep in mind, these are all software plus services engagements with a fixed fee, fixed cost engagements.
Thanks, Suresh. We're about to go to the Q&A section, so I told Suresh to put a flak jacket on to be prepared for all your questions. So just before we get into that, I just want to summarize some of the things that we've talked about and review some of the highlights. One of the things in regards to migrating as opposed to rewrite, what we found is applications that meet current business requirements, the need to preserve application functionality, and the requirement to rapidly adopt the .NET platform with little to no end-user disruption really lends itself well to a migration strategy versus a rewrite strategy. And the ARC process, as Suresh went into, is really unique to our offering, and it is a part of our discovery process. And again, just to reiterate, the ARC stands for Analyze, Refine, and Target. And applications must be analyzed at the attribute level to not only migrate what is necessary and target the right landing spot in the .NET stack, which is either, as Suresh mentioned, the InfoPath SharePoint or ASP.NET. So what we'll do here is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation, if you have some questions, use the Q&A button to ask any questions you have in regards to our process, our solution, our process, so anything you have from there. So we'll just wait a second here to allow you guys to ask any questions, and then we'll address any questions you have. Okay, actually we have a question. Suresh, do you want to ask?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions in here. One of the things that was asked was, what are the relational databases that you migrate to? So what we have seen till now is, typically the target relational database is SQL Server 2005, or we have also seen customers migrate to Oracle and DB2. Let's see. So the next question is, do you guys actually migrate to VB.NET? So right now, most of the business logic is actually migrated to C#, and so that's what we provide as part of the solution.
Okay, another question we had is, can we get a copy of this presentation? And absolutely, we'll have a copy of it put on our website that you can download, or in the next slide, I'll show you how you can get a hold of us, that I can call you, or Brian Turner, who's on the East Coast, can get a hold of you and give you that presentation and fill in any blanks you have from this presentation.
There was another question here. Do you actually migrate to InfoPath FAT client, which is basically requiring an InfoPath license on the clients to actually run these applications? We don't do that. We actually provide a web-based solution. So, what we provide is SharePoint with InfoPath web forms.
Okay. Another question that was presented was, is the Composer offering, is it a product or is it a solution? And the Composer is a solution. So it is a service engagement that we engage in. We price it more as a tool in regards to the fixed fee, fixed scope, but it is a service offering. We aren't selling a tool. And then one other question is, so can you give an estimate of how long it took and the cost to migrate the sample application that we demonstrated?
So that was about a 3-week engagement where we actually migrated from start to finish with all the interfaces and 3 dependent databases that we had to migrate as part of the solution.
And then, okay. Oh, and then another one is can we migrate over existing documents?
Yes. So all your existing document data is actually migrated, and like I was mentioning, all your forms get migrated into relational tables, and everything from your document data, all the rich text that's actually embedded within the documents, everything gets migrated. So we don't lose any data as part of the migration, and you have the capability to also use what we call our data pump that we provide, which will allow you to filter out any data if you choose to as part of the migration to populate the relational database once the migration is done.
Another question is what information do we need in order to provide an estimate for migrating the Notes applications to the web? So part of our process, which we didn't delve in a lot, is our discovery process. So what we need is to understand, first of all, what your objectives are as part of the migration, what you want to accomplish, what's important to you, and then there's a number of ways that we can engage with a client. Depending on how many applications they have, we can actually have you send us the application and we can analyze it, or if there's a number of applications that you have on site that you would like an estimate on, then we would most likely come on site to do that analysis. Because there's a number of different pieces, not only just analyzing the application, but in regards to infrastructure and integration with your Active Directory. So there's a number of things that we need to understand to make sure we understand your environment, what the target platforms are, and what you're trying to accomplish. So ultimately, what we need is just to make sure we understand what you want to accomplish, and then get an understanding that this is a direction that Unify can meet your objectives, and then just figure out a way whether you send us the applications or we come on site to actually look at those and do a deep dive on each of those applications. And then another question we had was, what are the costs associated with the discovery process? That really depends on the engagement and how you want to move forward. There's a number of different ways we can engage with a customer, whether that's through analyzing the whole environment, whether that's just looking at a single application as part of a pilot project. So it really kind of depends on how you want to engage and what your time frames are, and so we can discuss that individually on how you want to proceed. Another question we had is one organization is considering 600+ applications from Notes to the web. How do you approach this type of estimate? In regards to the larger organizations or larger number of applications, then we require an on-site engagement because with the number of applications and integration and infrastructure being so important with that many applications, we really like to come on site, interview the end user so we understand the functionality, the user interface. We also understand the security piece of it, the AD. And so, one thing that we do not do is, a platform assessment in regards to our discovery process. We are more interested in, we analyze the applications individually and where those applications should be targeted, and the integration to the integration of the applications within the new target platform, which is Microsoft, either SharePoint or ASP.NET, as we've talked about. So for larger applications, for larger install bases, we like to come on site.
Yes, I think we will probably follow up on the other questions later with a call from your end.
Sure. So just on the last slide, to get a hold of us, you can either call 1-800-GO-UNIFY or send us an email at composer@unify.com. Either myself or the other regional manager, which is Brian Turner, will get a hold of you, and we can discuss in more detail what our discovery process is, how to engage, whether that's on-site or whether that's just sending us an application on our FTP site. So thank you for all of your time. We'd love to engage with you, so if you have any questions, please let us know. And Again, thanks for your time.
Thank you.